Well, when I was a young age, about 10 years old, my parents bought a house in Sooke. It was fairly run down at the time, but they worked hard and worked on homesteading and building up the place over about 25 years. During that time, I attended grade school in the community and grew up here. Had a wonderful life growing up with all my friends and family in this community, and subsequently went into carpentry in residential house building and did that for quite a number of years and eventually moved on to managing projects for other companies.
All in Sooke?
Well, my career started off in Sooke with the residential building, but eventually it grew to working on for projects for international businesses such as Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, the Royal Canadian Navy, BC Ferries, and others.
So let's go right back to that 10-year-old in Sooke. What kind of kid were you when you were that 10-year-old in Sooke?
Well, I grew up as an only child. I was fairly quiet as I lived in a fairly rural neighborhood. There wasn't a lot of kids in the neighborhood. I found a lot of time I spent out in the backwoods hunting and fishing and walking all the nature trails in my backyard. We were pretty fortunate to have large acreages around us. It was a very nice, peaceful upbringing in this town.
How do you think that informs your beliefs about the environment and how we should be working with it now?
Well, being a rural community, I would say that we are surrounded by nature. I literally have black bears in my backyard that we cohabitate with. We've established friendly boundaries where we can live with those bears. We make sure there's no attractants, and we can live harmoniously together along with everybody else in this community as long as we're doing the right things and taking the right steps.
Were you a reader as a kid?
Fairly avid reader. I used to like fiction tales of different stories, of fantasies, of pirates and starships and barbarians and sorcerers. Yeah, I loved fantasy when I was a kid.
Did you have a favorite?
Mine was Conan the Barbarian was my favorite hero.
Why do you think?
It just seemed so outlandish, the lands and all the monsters that he would battle, and it just seems like he had a free lifestyle, can just go with the wind.
So where did that make you want to go?
Well, it led for my need to explore. You know, it piqued my interest to keep finding new things. I love the people of this town. You know, they've given me back so much over the years. The elders, you know, when I was little, you know, they always were there for the community. They provided their time. It's just one of those things that I'm super grateful for.
So when you were older then, finishing high school, what were your choices at that point, and how did you make your decisions about those choices?
Well, when I left high school, I decided to be a business major. I pursued that for a number of years, and eventually I became the so-called starving student. So looking at the need to earn money to pay for tuition, I started doing construction labor in town. And that was constant, continuous work with the local construction builders in town. And it was a way for me to just, you know, keep living here, enjoying life. And I did that for quite some time. And I actually ended up completing my carpentry. And I learned fine finishing along the way, and eventually got into doing my own renovation contracting. So
how did you start to move away from that?
Well, as I grew professionally, I found opportunity outside the community, and I felt that because there were somewhat limited opportunities in town to grow professionally, I felt like I had to leave the community, and I did very well and advanced my career, and now I'm focused on project management.
So you mentioned Royal Caribbean and the Navy and so on. Did you travel a lot with that?
Yeah, a lot of my work involved me working across shipyards in various places in the world. So those large carriers, they do regular refits every year, and they're in various locations. So quite often I was working on the road, away from home and away from the community. Of course, I would work for blocks at a time and then come back for some rest in between. That allowed me to get the skills that I feel that I can really add to promoting and helping this community.
When you were away and traveling and so on, and you were out around the world, what did you see that made you think of Sooke and what you would like to see in Sooke?
One of the biggest takes when I came back to the community is that it's so quiet here compared to other places in the world. We have the luxury of space, nature, and beauty that most places in the world don't have, and we really take it for granted. And sometimes you have to remove yourself from this town to really appreciate what you have.
It's interesting because I think that might be a process of growth for most young people anyway. And we worry about keeping young people in town, but I'm detecting a thread when I talk to people that the journey is kind of in coming back to town.
Oh, don't be scared to go out and explore for a while. I mean, you can always come back. The town is always open and welcoming to all the people that have ever lived here. You can definitely experience new things by stretching your wings and just getting out there.
So when you were out traveling the world, what did you see or experience that made the biggest impact on you?
The biggest impact I had probably was just experiencing other cultures. To experience new language, customs, ways of life. It was really an eye-opener, just to absorb that, learn from it, and bring that back to, the people around me in my community.
When you say it was an eye-opener, in what ways?
Well, I think until you really get out there, you're somewhat ignorant to the way things are out there. You see what's on TV, you see what's on the internet, you hear what's on the radio, but it's not always a true representation of what is out there.
I often think it's funny because we see the things that are newsworthy from other countries, and that's not always the things that really are at the heart of communities.
Well, it's a bit censored in the fact that it's always the sensational news that gets published first, and a lot of the more heartfelt, community-minded news gets left, for the end of the stories.
When you came back to Sooke, roughly how old were you? What stage of life were you at when you came back to Sooke?
Well, I actually never left the community. I've lived here for 41 years. I own my own home here in this community.
When you came back to full-time residency here, when you weren't traveling away?
Again, the travel was just part-time for work, so I've really been in the community the entire time. Work trips were only like 3 to 5 weeks at a time, and I was also doing local work in the local shipyards as well. So,
to all intents and purposes, you're an old Sookie.
Considered old Sooke, yes.
What goes through your mind when you hear people talk about old Sooke versus new Sooke?
Well, old Sooke has obviously been established here for a very long time. The families have been here since the pioneering days, along with the indigenous community. When I would like to just emphasize that Sooke needs to be here for everybody. New Sooke, old Sooke. In one respect, I feel old Sooke is maybe feeling a little bit ignored because some of those old small-time values are kind of getting walked all over.
When you say that, what are you referring to?
Well, some people want, to clamp down on the population growth and develop and keep things the way they were 20 years ago. Unfortunately, I think the cat's out of the bag. We've experienced super rapid growth in 10, 15, almost 20 years, really, that now that we're at a point where we're in a bit of a crisis and we have to catch up. So I think we really need sustainable management of the growth of this town in order to just sort of balance everything out.
Well, one of the factors to take into consideration these days, given what's happening south of the border, is that's certainly created, at best, uncertainty in the economy. And there are realignments and a lot of efforts going on to avoid the worst of that, but it's nevertheless going to make some economic difference. What does Sooke need to be thinking about in terms of growth, given that we may not be on the same trajectory we were before?
Well, I would say the economic prosperity of this town has been tied to housing in a large respect. We've had a decline in fishing, logging, mining, and other resource-based industries in this town. Most people are reliant on traveling to the Victoria for work. We've always been a bedroom community for a very long time. I think it's really important that we develop economic growth in this town so we can increase the number of high-paying jobs so people aren't so reliant on traveling outside the community for work.
We talk a lot about community, and that word has a lot of different meanings for a lot of different people. What does it mean to you?
Community is being together, belonging, being included. working for the greater good of everybody. We're all as a unit. We all live in the same area. We all experience the same things. If there's an environmental catastrophe, we all experience it together. For instance, when we had the forest fire the other year, it impacted a lot of people, and we were extremely scared. You know, forest fire risk is one of the threats to this community that I think needs to be taken a little bit more seriously.
So how do you foster your sense of community?
One, listening to the local residents. They have a voice. They really need to be heard. They all have great ideas, you know. We need to focus on completing our official community plan. I believe that a lot of the information in that plan is outdated. And as we move forward to complete that plan, I think some of those topics need to be revisited and make sure that the data that's being collected for that report and plan is accurate. Because I believe, like, some of the numbers that I've read through the plan, they seem like we've already met some of those numbers that are projected for the future. So I truly believe that some due diligence needs to be done in creating the finalization of that plan.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit. What kind of approach do you bring to solving a difficult problem? And I ask this because politicians sometimes are put in the position where what they would like to see happen is realistically not what can happen. So what do you bring to thinking your way through that kind of situation?
Well, there's always, you're trying to work for the greater good of the community. So you have to balance out the needs of what is most important, prioritize, and make sure that the key performance metrics are measured so that they can be kept on track, and that any kind of risk mitigation can take place before there's any real issues.
Are you the kind of person who listens to your gut?
Always. My gut has served me well over the last years. There's time and time where I go, oh, I felt that. I should have listened to it. And, you know, in retrospect, you learn from that. So I would say, yes, I do trust my gut.
When you second guess yourself, how do you make a decision?
Well, it's usually a comparison analysis. You know, I'm in project management. I'm used to weighing out options. You know, basically, after analysis, you weigh out your options and you try and pick the best option.
I don't want to really get down the policy rabbit hole here, but transportation is always a topic in Sooke and so on. Is there, you know, you talked about preserving the environment or working within the environment, and there are obviously environmental impacts when you expand transportation. How do you think your way around that?
The environmental impact on transportation. Well, for one, I would like to see a larger adoption of the bus system use in our community. You know, we have bus service in my local area in town, but it's not particularly convenient to use. You know, the times intervals are large in between. It's not regular service. I think if that was expanded and community need was assessed for appropriate expansion of the bus and transit system, I think that would be a huge benefit to the community. And it would also help the environment because people would be less reliant on their cars.
Do you have kids?
I do. I have one son. He's an adult, 22 years old, and he's presently working in the community as well.
How do you think about advising your kids in terms of what Sooke needs from them going forward as they build community?
I would say to the young folks, get out into your community and volunteer where you can, whether that's beach cleanups, whether that's assisting in nature recovery programs, town beautification, supporting of seniors, whatever you think you can give back, start at a young age, because I've started doing this later in life and I found that I really should have started earlier.
What have you started doing that you're really enjoying?
For one, just making sure, for one of the campaigns I do every year is I do broom eradication every year. It's one of the issues in this town, which is overwhelming for most people, but I think if we all work together, a little bit at a time can get a lot of work done.
You mentioned volunteering. What do you get back from volunteering, apart from the fact of getting rid of the broom? What else does it do for you?
Well, for one, it just gives me a sense of pride that I am actually giving back to the community, because I do recognize the fact that in the past that the community has given a lot to me and my family in the past. So it's just a way of just saying thank you. And this is one of the reasons why I am running for council, is because I really just heartful want to give back to the community.
What went into you making the decision to run for council?
What did? Well, part of it was time. Right now I have a bit more luxury of time where I can be flexible to focus on council issues. Previously, my career was pretty high-paced and dynamic, which didn't allow for a lot of time.
When you're doing something that takes a lot of time like that, do you have the ability to develop passions outside of work?
Oh, well, passions are usually outside of work. Work is usually what I do for a living in general, but I do like the work I do. I really shouldn't say that, but no,
I think that's pretty universal to think
that. Yeah, my passions really lie in my hobbies, you know.
Which are?
Which are outdoor activities. I like to hike, bike, fish. I used to surf. My knee doesn't allow it anymore, but it was a passion of mine at one time.
And Sooke is really a sort of almost unique place to be for all of those things to converge, isn't it?
It's a great place. We're at a central hub for all those kinds of activities. If you like nature and the outdoors, this is a great place to live.
When you're at the council table and you find yourself at odds with what other councillors want to do, how do you find your way through that? How have you learned to? What have you done in your life that's taught you how to do that?
Well, you're always going to find conflict in situations. It's just a matter of listening to all voices. You really need to hear what the other party is saying to really absorb and trying to take account of what they're saying. And if there's a matter that's really contradictory to what you believe, well, I believe in speaking up and imposing your opinion.
That's an almost easier said than done situation, though, where you can listen to what other people say, still believe what you think is right, and feel frustrated about the situation. So how do you work through that?
It's how you express that is the most. I mean, we all have our inner thoughts on how we feel about certain subjects, but how you deal with matters in public and addressing issues directly just makes a big difference.
So what do you reach into in yourself to give you that calm to do that?
Well, I would look in conviction in what I believe. If I fully believe that my position is correct, I'll stand by it.
Working construction and doing project management, those are very similar kinds of things. So you're working for a client, the client says what they want, and you pretty much meet what the client says, even if you disagree with it in the end. It's a bit different being a politician, because ultimately, yes, you're at the council table, but you're working for what the people want, and they're not always really clear on what they want because of varying opinions. So how do you go through the process of figuring that out, not just what you want, but what the people want?
Well, I would say in construction management, the scope of work isn't always well defined either. That's part of what we do. So defining the mandate from the people is the most important thing, really.
And how do you do that when there are divisions or people disagree on what they actually want?
Well, part of that is just getting a true representation of what the public sentiment is. That can be done through online surveys, through data collection. There's various different sources to get that information. But basically, you really just need to get to the root source of what's most important to the most amount of people in town.
And so you said you trust your gut, which is great.
Yep.
What if your gut is not telling you the same thing that the majority of people in town are telling you about an issue? How do you resolve that?
Well, I would look to outside expert witness for that. That's a common tactic in my line of work. Whereas if something is to be discovered or unknown, well, you got to fact find on that.
Tell me your favorite thing about being in nature, what it does for you.
For me, it kind of recenters myself. It brings me a sense of calm. It makes me happy. I have a golden doodle who's keeps me running on the trails almost every day. And,
that doodle energy is something to manage, isn't it?
Yeah, and I say I do it for him, but a lot of it's for me.
Your life with your doodle, does that introduce you to experiences you didn't think you would have?
Well, the funny thing, I injured my knee a few years ago, and he actually forced me to get up and keep rehabilitating it. Just him demanding that walk every day forced me to get up and keep working at it. So through a lot of struggle and pain over the years, I've done very well in getting a lot of function back in that. So,
Dr. Doodle.
Yeah, very good analogy.
When you mentioned as a kid that you read a lot of Conan the Barbarian and that was what you were reading. What do you read now?
Oh, it's funny. I don't read books nearly as much as I used to. Everybody's on their phone all the time. A lot of times I'm just researching articles about different kinds of rock music and other passions of myself.
If you could read for just absolute pleasure, what book would you pick up?
Oh, good question. I don't read a lot.
Okay. You mentioned rock music there. Are you an aficionado?
Aficionado, I would say I'm a fan. I play guitar in my pastime and have enjoyed playing in various garage bands over the years.
And rock music. Rock is actually, we're finding with the radio station, a pretty broad category. Yes. It's grown a lot. So would you narrow that down a little bit?
I can say I'm a cohort of Generation X, so I'm playing anywhere from 60s to 90s rock, but mostly in the 70s to 80s genres.
And do you veer to the harder rock?
I like the metal. I'll play all sorts of styles. It really depends. I really like playing with other musicians, and if you have a good variety of different music you can play, you can usually get along with most people and figure something out to play.
Just by the way that your face lit up, I guess that's a happy place for you when you're playing your guitar.
Oh, always. Lately, it's been every day. So.
Yeah. Do you remember when you first picked up a guitar?
Fairly late in life. I struggled a couple times in my teenage years to learn it. Had a guitar, didn't pick it up, and then I was about 18 or 19. I thought, I'm going to finally sit down and learn this thing. And I'm self-taught, which I probably shouldn't have been. Got lots of bad habits, which I'm still fighting with, 25 years later or something. So, yeah.
Did you ever belong to your own band or a band that continued over time, or has it been a sort of pickup thing where you are?
No, this is more just backyard wedding band kind of playing, or Saturday night jamming out with friends in the backyard. All good fun and great times for everybody.
So if you were to pick a favorite artist, who would it be?
Oh, favorite artists. Well, always been a fan of AC/DC. My son's name is Bon, after Bon Scott, so I can attest to being a super fan. That just goes back to me being a young boy and just hearing Angus Young on the radio just shredding it up and just going, who can play guitar like that? I'd never heard anything like that before in my life and been a fan ever since.
Oh, and favorite song?
Oh, what would I say? I actually really like Jailbreak. It's got a great groove and a good swing, and sounds great when you play it live.
Well, then we will try and play it live for you. No, we can't play it live. We'll try and get a recording. I thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate talking to you. Thanks so much for having me here today.
Great. Thank you.